think outside the box, if you will. I mean, go there, go off campus. Let's think this through. And sure enough, that's where the Mustang was born. When it finally hit, it took the country by storm.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Cars in Context. You know, this is the Motor City, and this is the show where we bring cars into the context of your everyday life. I'm your host, John Clor. Today we've got a great topic. Detroit is all about enthusiasts. Car enthusiasts are everywhere. The Woodward Dream Cruise. On the east side, we have the Harper Cruise. We've got the Gratiot Cruise. We've got Concours in Grosse Pointe. So we all love our cars, but the real way to tell if you really love cars is to join a car club. And today we have probably the most unique director of a car club in the entire United States, if not the world. We have a special guest we're going to talk to, and her name is Marcie Cipriani. Marcie, welcome to Cars in Context.
Thank you for having me,
I
John.
really appreciate you coming. We're going to have a great discussion. You're living in this man's world of car toys, and yet you're doing such a great job running, and in my opinion, one of the premier performance clubs in the U.S. Going to have a lot of fun to do that. But first, let's find out what's in the news. Okay, to lead off our headlines, we're going to find out a little bit about the secrets. That's what I like about this show. We're going to give you some secrets. This one is the secret behind turbo sales. If you think that hybrids and electrics are really the gimmick, if you will, the trends that automakers are using to meet the government's new emission standards and new federally fuel economy standards, you would be, well, you'd be wrong. Actually, you know, downsizing and turbocharging are the latest trends that are being used. In fact, while hybrids and electrics make up about 3% of the market, you know, analysts are now saying that 25% of the cars we will be able to get next year will have turbocharging as a way to get that power with the fuel economy that we want. Now, Honeywell, which is one of the largest turbo makers in the world, they believe that 36 million units, or 40% of new light vehicles sold in the United States, will be turbocharged by 2017. Now, what's the reason? It's tried and true technology, yes, but the real reason? It's because it's cheaper, Marcie. It's cheaper to get a turbo than it is an electric car or a hybrid. Cool stuff. Hey, why don't you give us a headline today, Marcie?
Our first headline here is Ford is expanding its lineup in Europe.
Okay.
Ford sources tell me that the company has plans to remake its European lineup to jumpstart sales over there, much like it has done over here in the States. Ford is betting on the small SUV market, which it believes will double in Europe over the next few years. Look for the Brazilian-developed EcoSport and the Ford Kuga to lead the charge, and watch for Ford to export the Edge from Canada to Europe and market it as a premium SUV.
Well, sure.
For a dash of excitement, Ford is also exporting the next generation Mustang,
Wow.
which is very exciting news,
Oh, yeah.
which will be made right here in the Detroit metro area
That's
to
right.
Europe.
That's right. We're going to go sending our favorite car over there, right?
That's right. That's going to make a lot of people very happy over there, I'm sure. Ford, the small car B segment,
Right.
Ford is renewing its ties with Fiat, who builds the Fiat 500-based Ford Ka in Poland.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that our little Ka, the Ford Ka, in there is made by Fiat in Poland, and it's based off the what is it, the little 500.
The 500, yes.
Yeah. So they're going to use SUVs just like we did here in the United States a couple years ago. SUVs were all the rage. They think the small SUV is going to take off in Europe. Very interesting, Marcie, and we wish good luck to them because, as we know, the European market is really bad right now. It's tough, and they're losing money. Speaking of Europe, though, let's go to another headline. The gas prices are skyrocketing in Italy. Now, if you think your pain at the pump is bad, we're looking at, I don't know what it is where you live out in Pennsylvania, but here it's about $4 a gallon, $3.95.
A little less than that. I think we're about $3.85 right now, right before I left.
Not too bad, but you know what? Right now it's really horrible in Italy. And then the reason is, folks, a gallon of unleaded regular has skyrocketed to almost $9.50 a gallon out there. Now, it's not because oil prices have gone up. It's not because the supply and demand problem. It's really because the Italian government had to raise taxes because, you know, they're in the tank, the government, and they're out of money. And to help cover the debt of Italy, they needed to raise some quick cash, so they figured let's slam it to the driver at $9.50 a gallon. Most of that is being taxed, which is pretty much common across Europe. Now, if you think that's bad, be thankful you don't live in Norway, because in Norway it's almost $10 a gallon. $10 for a gallon of gas. Now that's pretty rotten.
Well, they have fewer Ferraris probably in Poland.
Yeah, and everybody's driving a little 2-liter car, so which why they need that little car. Do you have any other headline for us there, Marcie?
Yes, I do. Ford Focus reaches #1 in sales. On August 31st, 2012, Ford produced its 350 millionth production vehicle.
350 million
350
car
million.
for Ford Motor Company.
And it was a Focus that rolled off the line in Thailand.
Wow.
Because, of course, the Focus is a global platform.
It's built
It is
everywhere.
built in 20 different countries, I believe. To put that number into perspective, 350 million.
It's kind of hard to believe.
If placed end to end, the Ford Motor Company has built enough vehicles to stretch to the moon and back twice.
Oh,
Twice.
amazing.
Put another way, it is the equivalent of building one vehicle every 10 seconds of Ford's 109-year history.
That, folks, is a manufacturing superstar story, and it's all here in Michigan. Ford founded here in the Detroit area, and our congratulations to them for hitting that milestone.
Absolutely. Also, one of the cars took over the top sales spot this past summer. The Ford Focus became the best-selling single-car nameplate in the world.
An American car back on top. Thank goodness we've unseated an import.
At the halfway point, Ford Focus hit 490,000 in worldwide sales, passing the Toyota Corolla, which sold 460,000 units. While Toyota sales are, on the whole, are surging, it has become welcome news for fans of American car companies.
Yeah, we thank
Yay, Ford.
Great job. Wow, let's keep it going. Let's keep it rolling, folks. I've got another one. Speaking of, I was talking about Italy earlier. Listen, this is how bad things are getting over there. So it's important to note that the economy over there is even worse than what's going on here in the United States. So consequently, some analysts are saying there's no real light at the end of the tunnel over there. They're not going to improve anytime soon. And since the auto industry is really key to an economy, as we're learning here, what's kind of driving our recovery is the good news from auto sales. It's not happening there. So Greece and Italy are really the hardest hit. In fact, the report recently in the Detroit Free Press said that new vehicle sales in Italy have fallen so much that they're now being outpaced. Are you ready for this, folks? By bicycles. That's right. Bicycles are outselling cars in Italy. That's the first time that's happened since World War II. So you're not about ready to, you know, pack up your car and just drive a bike back home to Pennsylvania.
No, I don't think I could do that.
Oh my goodness. So that's about it for this edition of In the News. We'll be right back with the topic of the day.
Thousands of your friends and neighbors enjoy music under starlit skies, rediscovering themselves every day through our classes and events. Children celebrate life here and learn all sorts of amazing things. We enrich lives in honor of veterans. Your friends and neighbors gather to honor those who gave the ultimate sacrifice of all so we could live free. Don't take your war memorial for granted. Make your contribution today.
Welcome back to Cars in Context. I'm your host, John Clor. Today we've got a wonderful guest, Marcie Cipriani. Marcie is the National Director of the Special Vehicle Team Owners Association. That is a performance car club, basically centering around the performance cars in the last 20 years out of Ford. Marcie comes to us out of Montoursville, Pennsylvania. She was driving through town, just did a great event, and I wanted her to bring to us a little bit of the life inside a car club, especially a performance car club, so that you can understand not only does she have quite a task, but quite a passion for cars, and, by the way, being a woman in a man's world of car toys has been really quite a fun challenge for her, and I wanted to bring it home to us. Marcie, again, thanks for joining us here on Cars in Context. I understand that you just came back from a trip. That's why we caught you here in Detroit. But before we get into all that, there's going to be viewers that are wondering, you know, wait a second. You know, I know a lot of gals that have great cars. They drive motorcycles, they drive cool cars, but how many of them can really run a national club for performance cars? You must have had this passion for cars a long time ago, much before you got into this club business. When did it really start for you?
Oddly enough, I come from a family of die-hard Dodge and Chevy people. I am the one Ford person in my entire family, and I don't really know why. But one day I happened to see, of all things, in a McDonald's drive-thru, and I remember it clearly, in a McDonald's drive-thru, the car in front of us caught my eye. And it turns out that was an '84, it was the 20th anniversary Mustang.
Okay, oh yeah.
The white with the red
stripes,
stripes.
yeah.
Yes, and that was the one. That's
That
the
was
first
the car.
Mustang I ever remember seeing. It had to be, you know, probably in '84, '85. And it just kind of stuck from there.
And from then on, you said, you know, I really like these cars. And did you start researching them, or how did you, you know, feed this passion for these hot cars?
Well, I always liked to drive. The first time I ever drove was around the fields on our farm because we had a little Honda, and my mom would let me drive it every once in a while, and I did okay with it. So when I turned 16, I got my license right away, went out that night, took my mom's car out. I had never driven the car really that much, and when the sun went down, I didn't know how to turn the lights on. I was very unprepared, but I was going as soon as I could.
So driving is a big key to it. You remember, folks, we just did a show recently when we talked about how young people today don't really care about driving at an early age. Some of them are waiting until they're 19, 20, in their late 20s before they even get their license. They're more interested in their cell phone or their computer than they are of getting a car. And so this is kind of a little lesson learned in that here, if you have this passion early, you can really, I mean, you've moved well beyond just driving cool cars. You started owning these things, fixing them up. Now, did you get involved with a club early on, or you just happy just to buy a cool car, fix it up, meet other people in the hobby, if you will, the collector hobby? How did that all start?
Yeah, people ask me, how did you get into you know, the SVT Owners Association? And the simple answer was, my son was about maybe 20 months old, and I was losing my mind and needed to get out and get some adult time. So I had taken my '79 pace car, which was the only Mustang I had at the time, into the local tire shop.
Okay.
And the owner of the tire shop said, hey, you should come join the Mustang Club.
Okay.
And that was in 1999.
Oh, wow.
And I showed up at the Mustang Club. I didn't know anybody there except the guy from the tire shop. And here we are all these years later. I'm sitting here in Dearborn, well, in Detroit, actually, and have met people like you along the way, and other people who each person takes you a little farther down the road.
Unbelievable.
And here I am as the National Director of the SVT Owners Association.
No, we should tell people too that Marcie had a real job, and she was working hard.
I used to.
Yeah, as a graphics designer, and you're doing real well with that. And then you got involved with a couple of other enthusiasts who were doing books, and that's how you came to Dearborn and started. And they were doing books about the hot Mustangs, the Cobras.
Yes.
And one of the first books that you worked on as designing it was the Cobra Recognition Guide. For those of you who like Mustang Cobras, we're talking about the late model Cobras from '93 on. And Marcie, so you came to Detroit with these guys doing research on these cars, and you were trying to put together this book. Now, I understand that book is a collector's item.
Yes, it is.
Are they that hard to find?
Yeah, every once in a while I will have someone email me directly and say, do you have any copies of the book? And I look up on my shelf where I have a sealed, taped, do not open box of these Cobra books that I'm like, no, I don't have any more left, because there won't be ever any more of them printed. So those are very, very special to me, and I keep them.
So I can tell you from the guys at Ford that started dealing with you then, you hung around with them a little bit more. You got to know the personalities, the chief engineers, all the guys that did that. That's why the book was so cool, because you got the stories behind the cars. And then you started going to events, but you went to events anyway. But you went to a lot of the Ford events and hung out with some of the Ford executives and some of the other Ford people, and they started to know you a little bit more. So take us through like '05 when the special vehicle team, folks, if you don't know about SVT, you can get onto Marcie's website, SVTOA.com, and learn the story of this niche group within the company that wanted to get away from the mainstream cars, the bread and butter cars that Ford sold, and make high performance variants. Now, Marcie, they started out with the Cobra and the F-150 truck called the Lightning back, what, in '93? '93,
yes.
But they did a couple other vehicles. What were the other two cars that they did?
They also did the SVT Contour between '98 and 2000.
Mid-size four-door sedan, sporty version of it. Okay.
Yes, which still has a very big cult following today, even as old as those cars, though. are now. I still see them on the road. I
Right.
still see, you know, they have their own enthusiast club
Yeah.
of their own and do their own events.
Wow.
Which is,
And then they wanted to get, I know the pocket rocket segment,
Yeah.
Ford wanted to get the young kids attracted into this. So, how did they do that? I mean, what was their foray into that?
in 2002, they developed the SVT Focus.
Okay.
They
Now
took
that's not the one we see today, it's a previous generation Focus.
Exactly, yes.
So they souped that up for the kids.
But it's coming back around. Now we're going with the Focus ST
That's
for
right.
much different reasons now, probably.
Yeah.
Because I think, and even with the original Focus, a lot of the owners weren't necessarily the young kids, I think, that they were targeting, but it was the people who had Cobras or Lightnings and wanted something made by SVT, the special vehicle team, to drive every day.
Something fun.
And yeah, and a lot of them ended up with the Focus
Too cool.
as their daily driver.
So Ford then, back in the day, had a special marketing arm for this special vehicle team. And then when, just before the recession hit, when that was disbanded, the marketing team went away. They still have SVT products now. They have a Raptor pickup. They have the SVT, the Cobra is the GT500, a Shelby GT500. And they have, this, as you say, a new Focus ST. So this group, the engineers still build the SVT cars, but this marketing group went away. And the club they had founded was the SVT Owners Association back in 2000. That was going to just go away. So they said, well, should we let it disband? Or you said, wait a minute, there's some value there, and that's when you got approached by Ford. What were you thinking, this take over such a crazy job? You have a job, you're raising this kid, you know, you've got all kinds of, you're in the middle of Pennsylvania. Why did you decide to jump into the car enthusiast club world?
Well, yeah, when the economy started to show a few cracks, they decided we got to get out of the club business and focus on making cars, and that's what we want to do. And obviously, they didn't want to see the club just die off.
Right.
And since then, a lot of clubs have died off, so I think it says a lot that we're still around. And through the contacts I had made through different publishing efforts and contacts in Ford Racing, such as yourself and other people that were in charge of this club, they wanted to see it go into private hands and not die. Now, of course, you know, we are completely independent now, and you know, the club used to be a marketing arm for Ford, but now we run it like a normal traditional club. We have our own events here and there. Like you mentioned, I'm literally on my way back from Wisconsin, just doing a pit stop here to stop and talk to you, and then back on my way to Pennsylvania.
Now, you should tell us, tell the viewers what happened in Wisconsin. Now, that's an annual event. You know, SVT has several. I know you do the SVT Superfest down at Virginia International Raceway. I love that event. I love the track. It's a lot of fun to go down there. You're at the Carlisle All Ford Nationals in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Always, yes.
You've done some other what they call experience events, but you just did another, like the 7th or 8th annual. Was it? It's a cruise for the Susan B. Komen, right?
Yes, one of our longtime members, Dan Neve, has started a program called Cruise for a Cause.
Okay.
And he takes his 2010 Shelby GT500, which is all decked out with pink ribbons on it, and he's put a lot of time and effort into going to events all over the country, raising money, and doing different charity events. He actually comes down to our event in Virginia, our track event, and does charity rides.
Wow. Folks, you should have seen him at Woodward. I know he was at the Mustang Alley at Woodward raising money for breast cancer research. Breast cancer had affected his family in a very powerful way, so he wanted to make a statement. He loves cars. He's in the car hobby. He's in the club, and this was his way. I heard, so it was the fall color tour up in Wisconsin, kind of, the colors were turning?
Yes, they were just starting to, yes.
Pretty cold up there.
It was freezing.
But swoopy little, so this is the kind of thing when you join a car club, rather than say, I like this car and I'll just sit at home and read about it or maybe take it out to your local cruise. When you join a club, you find out about all these cool little things that they go off and do. So these cruises can happen just about in any chapter across the U.S., right?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the biggest things we're doing is partnering up with other clubs too.
Oh, okay.
That makes it much easier to have the manpower and the funding to put together events. We do it with our event in Virginia.
And that's with the SVT Cobra Mustang Club?
SVT Cobra Mustang Club, yes, yep. And next year we'll have something with Team Shelby.
Awesome.
And also they were there at this event this past weekend as well.
So folks, that's the whole reason why you want to get into a club. I mean, you can share this passion with the car. But Marcie, let's talk about, you know, you pay a small fee, $20, $30, $40 to get into a club, and you expect something from it. I know you do an annual magazine, and you're trying to make it biannual. You do these events, but then you also are running a merchandise store. You're licensed by Ford Motor Company to do SVT branded merchandise. And what about some of the other things? Like, didn't you just do a big event in Dearborn this past summer?
Yes, about 6 weeks ago, we had SVT Homecoming, which is the first of an annual event that we're going to do in and around the Dearborn area to give people who have SVT vehicles, but not only that, but people that have Boss 302s and any other performance vehicle, we welcome them all into the club. And we got everybody gathered around. We had an entire day at the Dearborn Development Center. You
have to drive the cars.
Proving grounds, yes.
That's not going to happen, folks, if you're on your own. They'll stop you at the gate.
Exactly. You can't get behind the wall.
No.
So we spent a day doing that, and then we got into the SVT garage.
Oh,
we did a tour of the garage and got to rub elbows with the engineers and have some nice one-on-one time about the new cars, the old cars, what's coming next.
And then I understand some of the executives that created this group 20 years ago came out and spoke to your club. Neil Ressler?
Yes.
One of my heroes.
A very rare appearance of Neil Ressler,
and then Hao Tai Tang, a lot of people know that was the guy behind, one of the guys behind the current generation Mustang.
Yes.
So this is all happening because if you weren't in the club, A, you wouldn't know this was going on, B, you couldn't be there, so you couldn't experience this connection, if you will, with the people that made the car. To me, that's a no-brainer. But what about some of the other things people talk to me about being in a club? Because one mistake that you make with the car, I want to change the wheels, I want to do this, I want to do that, and if you don't have any advice, you could make $1,000, $2,000, several $1,000 mistake. Isn't the club the kind of place to go to find out all this stuff first?
Absolutely, and also with the cars made by SVT, very limited numbers.
Yeah.
It helps maybe to make that decision if you see exactly how rare your car is, and that's where we come in.
Speaking of rare cars, folks, Marcie's going to be very humble about this, but she did a special book about one of the rarest of all the performance cars made by an American manufacturer. That is the Ford GT. And I know that, now is your book still available? I know we have
yes, it is.
We have a photo of the cover of this book. So where would I, if I wanted to read about the entire owner experience of owning one of these American-made supercars, where would I get that?
That is available. Actually, we have signed copies by myself and my co-author, Joe Limongelli, on our website at SVTOAstore.com.
That's so cool to be up and close and personal with the people that some of the highest level enthusiasts in the nation or in the world have purchased these cars. Jay Leno has one.
Yes, I got to talk to him and interview him. We have a little story about him and how he got his car in the book.
That's right, you were on Jay Leno's Garage.
Yes.
It's not quite as cool as being on Cars in Context, but Jay Leno's Garage will do.
That's okay.
And Marcie has also been instrumental in helping me. I produced a DVD about the history of the original Mustang. It's called Marketing the Mustang, an American Icon. And Marcie, you are also making this little 30-minute documentary about the story behind the original Mustang available at the same place. So it's on, is it on the SVTOAstore.com?
Yes, it is.
So they can also get this. So these are the kinds of unique things you're not going to find at your local bookstore. You're not going to find just stumbling across typical car shows. You've got to really be in the club to get this insider stuff. And the rewards are fun. I mean, are they? So has it been for you a rewarding experience to be the director?
Absolutely. In 2007, I quit my job in advertising, which I had seemed to be in forever, and decided to do this full time. And I've not regretted it a day since.
So let that be a lesson to you folks that have a passion for cars and a passion for a certain kind of car. Get into the club, you start to learn about what's going on in the club, and you really will, maybe you can become a national director like Marcie Cipriani. Marcie, that is really fantastic. I again appreciate you telling us this story. But you know what? It's now time for a favorite segment we have here on Cars in Context. It's time for Pride in My Ride. Okay, today's Pride in My Ride person is very close to me. And Marcie knows it too. The car belongs to Jenny Clor of Harper Woods, Michigan. This is Jenny and her 1980 Ford Pinto station wagon. This is the last year the Pinto was made in the United States because the Escort had come out. And this little wagon she found online. She remembers driving them when she was younger. She really enjoyed these little cars. They get to haul a lot of stuff from the garage sales. She found this car up in Sandwich, Illinois. It was purchased out of an estate sale out of Arkansas. And I'm going to say this in the same sentence. This was a rust-free Pinto, said it in the same sentence. So she fell in love with it. Jenny traced down we had to get a new interior, had it painted up on 12 Mile and Groesbeck. She had a new interior done by Shelby Trim up on Mound Road. And that was really hard because you can't find plaid interior anymore, blue plaid. But Jenny got that done. She had me try to track down the wheels and tires. We got it mechanically sound. Our friends up there at Ride Perfection Center up there in Harper and St. Clair Shores did most of the mechanical work. And Jenny will drive this in all the cruises you'll see on Woodward, see on Harper. She's up and down Grosse Pointe. If you see this little white wagon decked out in a stallion scheme, that's Jenny Clor, who has a lot of pride in her ride. And for my wife, thank you, dear. I know you'll never sell it, so I have to take really good
Funny
care.
story about that car, actually. She took us, my son and I, on a drive around Belle Isle, and as, you know, a little Clor's tours, like we like to call them.
Detroit, yeah.
And as we pulled up to a light, a tractor-trailer driver motioned to
roll
down the window, because, you know, roll down window.
Yeah, roll down windows.
And
what are those?
And he's like, that car is beautiful. Do you want to sell it? It's in the middle of the street in Detroit.
It really is.
It is
but wait,
a great
there's
car.
even more, folks. Now it's time for us to wait. Do we have some? Yes, we do. We have viewer mail. Here's Kermit Potter. Thank you, Kermit. Look, we have. Thank you, Kermit. We have some viewer mail. We want to get to this before we close the show. This one comes to us from Mary E. She lives in Grosse Pointe Park. She watches WMTV on Comcast Cable 5. Here's the question. Hello, John. I saw the show where you said that in the news was a report that said traffic deaths in the U.S. were dropped for the 5th straight year and lowest since 49. But I just heard a report that said just the opposite, that traffic deaths in the U.S. have gone up 9%. Is Cars in Context going to issue a correction? Well, Mary, no. That's because the numbers we gave you was for last year, and this number is for this year. They're actually going up this year. People think it's because of we're driving more. That's not the case. It's actually, we believe, texting while driving, distracted driving trouble. Now, do you have a letter before we can close here, Marcie?
Yes, I do. This one comes from Steve A. from Canton, who watches Cars in Context on WMTV on AT&T UVerse Channel 99.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Dear Cars in Context, I really like the Pride in My Ride segment on your show, where you feature viewers' favorite cars. But I'd like to know why you only show cars. What about someone who has pride in his motorcycle? What is wrong with having a pride in your ride? If your ride happens to be a Harley Davidson.
Cars in Context.
Well, it's your show.
Okay. Well, I don't have any hard and fast rules. If you have pride, if your ride is a Harley, I suppose we can do that too. So I think those are great. Marcie, it's time, believe it or not, we ran out of time. I want to thank you again for coming by, folks. If you've got a Pride in My Ride or an idea for our show, you can send it to me at jclor@carsincontext.com. Check out our blog with Chris Sawyer on thevirtualdriver.com. And as always, tune in to the next show. We're going to have lots of fun stuff. As you know from the beginning, knowledge is power. So until next time, I'm your host, John Clor. Bye-bye.
Thank you, George.